But at the same time, outrage is appropriate. And that's one of the differences between this crime, between child rape and molestation, and say drunk driving. Drunk driving, outrage is allowed. Outrage is called for. It's called for with child rape and molestation too. But the public health industry, and quite rightly, point out that the victims actually need some quiet, and that for that reason alone, they keep everything very, very quiet as they're handling it. But I'm pretty sure that out in the community, it's important to let people know that this is an outrageous crime and that outrage is appropriate.
How can we help further as private investigators, human trafficking workers? How can we help?
Well, our mission is primarily in the community, certainly during the first years of our operation. So as members of the community, just as you are helping Melinda, everybody has special skills and special interests and ways that they can bring their talent to bear on problems in the community. But as I say, we are always going to be people in the community, and every community is going to have people like us, private investigators, and people who are concerned with human trafficking, and people who operate stores, and people who are police, and people who drive trucks and that kind of thing. Grandparents and Others on Watch has some aspect in its operation for everyone. If you're a grandparent or a retired person who's been sitting out on lawn chairs in your driveway, well, and you're a little bored with that, then we would encourage you to join our Case Watch program, which is we actually follow these molestation and rape and pornography trials to the point where they get to the actual trial and the sentencing. And during those periods of time, we go and sit in the courtroom and look at the judge and look at the defendant and let them know that we're there. In my opinion, that's something that's an activity that's more rewarding than sitting in your driveway and watching traffic go by. That's just my opinion. I do know people, who are going to continue to sit in their driveway and watch the traffic go by, and God bless them. If you are a public speaker and have some socialization skills, we would very much welcome you to join us in our education program. You have to give a 15-minute talk. You have to talk about something that's very uncomfortable in a room full of strangers who are there for other purposes, but who are also very interested in what you have to say and very supportive. If you're homebound, or don't want to do things out in the public, we have programs like we're contacting every media outlet when we go into a state, we'll contact, as we are here in Missouri, every media outlet, asking them to prominently display the Department of Social Services hotline number somewhere in their newspaper or on their screen, or have it read on the radio, and do this at a regular time and do it permanently. In other words, it's always going to be on page 4 of the newspaper. It's always going to be read at a certain time. It's always going to be shown and the reason for that is, of course, it's so that sometimes when people are in stressful, abusive situations, they really don't know what to do. They don't know how they can get a phone number. They don't know how they can get help. That would be probably one reason why they'll be contacting us, which is great. So we want the media to take responsibility for getting that phone number in front of people. Everybody watches television. Many people look at the newspaper. People listen to the radio. There's no reason in the world that the media can't do that for us. And so what we do is we have an email list. We're emailing them and saying, will you do this? And if you do this, tell us so that we can let everybody know that you're doing it. If you're doing something similar, email us back and tell us what that is, and then let's talk. have started a dialogue with the public library here about public computers and how children need to be supervised on library computers. They have their attitude toward that, and we respect that, and we're going to have a our public discourse, we'll try to keep it very civil, but we are also going to be very firm about it. I went down to the library, I clicked Safe Search Off, I did some other things, and sure enough, some images came up that you don't want your children to see. Now they have various attitudes about that, and the library itself has a Facebook page. It's a way that they feel they can communicate with children. But those are the kind of things that you can do without leaving your home. If you'd like, we'll give you an email list, and you can send out 10 a day or however many you like, and wait for, and when the responses come in, catalog them, and we're rolling along. We're contacting daycare centers and churches, and this is a lengthy process that goes on and on. There are 400 daycare centers here in Columbia, in a town of 100,000, I think. So this area, the area probably has a greater population than that, but there are 400 daycare centers. We want to talk with them about that. We will set up a monitoring operation to coordinate with the neighborhood associations. We'll tell the neighborhood associations in a town, and if there are no neighborhood associations, we'll talk to somebody about starting the neighborhood association. But we'll tell the neighborhood associations where predators live in their neighborhood. They don't have to look it up. We'll look it up. We'll send the email to the head of the association. I've got a list of them here in Columbia. I mean, I've got the email of every neighborhood association. I've got it right off the internet. So there are a lot of these things that can be done by people who, if you have a few minutes a day. So we're not asking a lot of anybody. As I said, we've talked to Melinda Kidder, who's a private investigator, about helping us out in a consultative way. We don't want to take up a lot of time or anything, but when something like this incident that we were talking about earlier comes up, we need some professional help. We need people who can tell us what is the best course of action to take. So we're not going to hesitate to ask our police friends, our private investigator friends, our human trafficking friends, anybody who's involved in fields that can help us further the mission of keeping children safe from exploitation and molestation. We'll call on, and I would say if they either get on board or they don't, and we don't mind a bit if people are too busy and can't do it now, because we're going to be around a long time, and we'll keep asking.
Dan, how can people contact GrOW to become more involved or to receive more information?
Well, you could write us at our post office box. It's Grandparents and Others on Watch, post office box 30776 in Columbia, Missouri 65205. Or you can just call me directly at 573-449-7657, or email me directly at. We have a GrOW email address and a GrOW website. It's www.grow-america.org. But you can call me directly at 573-449-7657, or email me directly at dpeak@socket.net. And that's calling me directly or emailing me directly on those personal lines is probably the easiest way to get in touch.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Well, as I say, we're just starting out, and this type of interaction is very useful for us, because we're telling our story, and it's a great story. I mean, remarkable things have happened just in the 6 months we've been operating. Some of them unanticipated. The first presentation we made was to an Optimist Club, and when we finished, everybody listened, and when we finished, an elderly guy raised his hand and said, "Well, how can you give children self-esteem?" I mean, they were asking us a question that we hadn't anticipated, but now we do anticipate it. I mean, and it's all part of the learning process. And we have an answer. I mean, we refer him to Haim Janat, who was the guru of child psychology and self-esteem, and we give him a page of his. So the thing is that we've learned so far is we have to keep things brief and comprehensive. There's a wonderful book that I'm about halfway through now called "Identifying Child Molesters" by Carla Van Dam. She's a PhD. It's perfect. The issue is would people actually sit down and read the book? So what we'll do is we'll condense each chapter down to one page, and we'll hand that out, just like we do Haim Janat. Here's 13 principles, and they make sense. Talk about your child. Don't say anything in front of the child that you don't want to hear repeated. Simple as that. Because that keeps the child out of trouble when actually you're the one that causes the trouble by. So I mean, there's simple. Our organizational motto is keep it simple and straightforward. And that's what we're learning to do as we go through these kind of processes and as we make our presentations. And we'd be very interested in hearing from other organizations. I think that we and other organizations like this, like Grandparents and Others on Launch and Human Trafficking, are the first robins of a new spring. What's happened is that we are empowered by the internet. Before about 1995, an organization like ours could not have been as effective as we can be now because we didn't have access to a lot of information. We couldn't go to case.net and track every case that's in the courts in Missouri. We couldn't Google child molesters and find out about a book called Identifying Child Molesters. We couldn't go to www.missingkids.com and order books from the FBI, from Kenneth Lanning, that were about profiling child molesters, and they're free. And the National Center for Missing and Exploited Kids mails them out to you and pays the postage. So the time is plus. In about 2001, up until about 1975 or thereabouts, nobody really studied or researched child molestation and rape. It was just something that everybody liked to pretend didn't happen. But starting about in the mid-70s, the researchers began to gather statistics together and realize what a huge problem it is. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, John Walsh, helped set that up with the Justice Department in the early 80s. And at about 2000, a 25-year period of study was completed. And for child molestation, that is the length of time that the study has to go. Because if you study them for the 5 years right after they get out of prison, the recidivism number is going to be much less than it will be 25 years later. Because sooner or later, during the course of the child molester's life, they will molest again. And it doesn't matter how much therapy they get, it doesn't matter what you do, they will do it again. And so we now have mostly studies and books that were published after 2001 that have more accurate numbers on it, that tell you that only 1 in every 3,000 cases, 1 in 3,000 cases of child molestation or rape, that's all that result in an arrest and conviction. So it's vastly underreported. It's something that really undermines any hope that we might have of producing strong leaders in our children, leadership in our children. And when we have reduced this crime significantly, we will increase significantly the quality of citizens that this country has.
Dan, thanks for allowing us into your home to learn more about GrOW
Right.
and to talk about extremely difficult topics like child abuse, child molestation, and human trafficking. And best of luck to your organization
Well,
with its
thanks very
mission.
much. Thanks.